This week in post, when a little adjustment is enough. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In Post. We're going to dive straight in today and talk about when you have a photo and you just need to do a little bit of adjustment on it. And to me, that's usually a really good sign. It means you've nailed your exposure in camera, or you've just got a scene where everything was just working for you and there's just a few tweaks you need to do in the machine to take care of business. And I've got this photo here. It's this is an outtake, if you can believe it, of one of the sunset photos I took. I talked about this shoot earlier this week on In the Field. Everything just came together, and as the sun had long gone off the horizon, started taking a few more photos. And so what we have here is straight out of the camera, with the exception of our lens corrections. I have those turned on so you can get an idea, just a little bit of bowing from the wide angle lens there. And everything felt good in this scene here. I got a nice sweep of water. Maybe my foreground's a little bit funny, which is kind of why I consider this an outtake. Compositionally, I probably should have done something a little bit differently. But it was a good enough photo to work on and go through the processing of. So first was basic adjustments. So I'll turn those on, and that's doing all our things in the basic panel. I kept white balance as auto. I was happy with it. Minor raise on exposure, some contrast, highlights and shadows. You've seen other of my videos, you see how I approach adjusting all of these sliders. But nothing extravagant here, real just basic things. Get your exposure right, add a little contrast, add a little clarity, in this case a little more saturation. And already this is brighter, it feels nicer, it's certainly warmer, particularly at the horizon, feels all good. From there, went into a little more color work. And so these are subtle changes. Let me open up hue, saturation, luminance, so you can see what's going on here. And if I toggle this off and then on, the most dramatic changes you see are in the blues and the aquas. That sky's getting a little bit richer blue. Like watch up in this upper corner here, and then in this lower corner where we got a bit of aqua tones in the water. Again, off and then on. And just bringing those things a little darker, a little richer. It's almost acting as a bit of a vignette, helping me focus my eyes toward that glow on the horizon. Moving on from there, I did a little brush work. And so I'm going to turn on this brush layer, and let me open up the brush tool. There's one brush right here, if I hover over it, just brushing a little bit of detail and raising exposure slightly on those fingers of water over this rock. Just want to accentuate that. That's an interesting element in the photo. Really, I think the subject is the sunset, and the rock and the waves are an accent to that. But I did want to draw attention to these fingers of water because that's an interesting feature. It's a nice spill. And from here, I kind of just started to play around a little bit. Again, I consider this one more of an outtake, mainly because of my composition with this foreground. It could have been better. But added some graduated filters, and this really changed the color mood. So what's going on here? Let me open up that. I've got one, if I hover on that one, which is for the sky. And I think the magic of this one, if I click on it, is adding a little tiny bit of a color cast in the red purples areas. And so that's just giving it that purplish tone overall, because that very light red is mixing with more or less the blue that's in the sky and giving it that purple tone. And as I'm looking at this, I might even raise that up a little bit so I don't wash out my nice orange at the horizon. So maybe like that. That actually looks a little bit better. And then similarly for the foreground, a second one here, and this was just adding a little more clarity, a bit more saturation, and a tiny touch of exposure just to brighten up this foreground here so it doesn't get lost in the photo. So once more time here, before the graduated filters and after, you can see that shift where before the sky is brighter and it's about the same tonal range, or I should say luminance range, as the foreground. And then after, our eyes shift. It's a very different photo. And last but not least, of course, adding a vignette. Toss that on there. And just all this basic stuff in Lightroom. And so, the vignette, nothing special about it. Let's get into that. Where's that effects? We can close this down so we can see what we got here. Very, very subtle. And I don't even think I changed anything with midpoints or roundness or so forth. So a really standard basic vignette. So all that added up, let me press the backslash key. This was before, so this is what came out of the camera. And after, series of basic adjustments. And I guess that's the tip of the week. You don't always need elaborate adjustments. You don't always need plugins. As much as I love my plugins and I love adding interesting textures or stylization, not every photo needs that. And sometimes it's just a small set of changes that are needed to make an image really, really pop. And that wraps up this week in post. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, let me know somehow. You can comment on the video, share this on social media, and tag me. All of my social links are on my website. You can contact me through my website if you've got a question about what you saw here or another photography question. In any way, shape, or form, be good to hear from you. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting. Photography? Okay. Trials and tribulations of working at home.